This episode is sponsored by UPMC Altoona Elite Orthopedics. UPMC Altoona Elite Orthopedics is proud to support youth sports across our region and proud to sponsor the 2023 high school football preview on the Altoona Mirror YouTube channel. To learn more about their board-certified orthopedic surgeons and the wide range of orthopedic conditions they treat, or to schedule an appointment in one of their facilities in Hollidaysburg or Bedford, visit upmcaltoona.com/ortho or call 814-889-3600.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Week 13 of the High School Football Show. We are still plugging away because we still have teams in the area playing. You are watching on YouTube TV and also on Public Access Channel 13, the Altoona Mirror Football Show with our guru, Mike Boydham, junior guru, Andy Stein, and we have a special guest that we snuck into the building tonight using my connections. We got Tyrone football coach John Franco, who's donating his stipend that we had to pay him to come here to a local charity of his choice.
That's right.
So that's what we're going to send the check to at the end of the show. Mike's got our list of games. I don't know if John got to see him here because we did print out a page for you. But I can share with him since we're brothers. But anyways, we got 4 games Mike wants us to look at. The first one we're going to start off with Cambria Heights, the 4 seed. Purchase Line, the 2 seed. Michael, there's no 1 or 3 here. So, in Cambria Heights, they did not play Purchase Line this year, correct?
No, they did. They played actually in the first game of the year.
And
Purchase Line won 19-7, and that was kind of like the game that, hey, Purchase Line might do something this year because Purchase Line was actually picked to finish 7th in the Heritage Conference in our Blitz magazine. So not a lot was expected of this team this year, and they were kind of at the top of the 1A field throughout the whole year after winning that big game against Cambria Heights. And I know Coach Franco knows all about winning a big game at the beginning of the year. Like if you would beat Bellwood in those games like that, that could kind of give you momentum that could carry you through the whole season. And that's kind of what happened to Purchase Line.
Absolutely. Like when you start off, especially with a big rival or a team that you're not supposed to beat, it can provide momentum for the whole year.
now, when you played, I'm curious, did you ever have a semifinal game where you got a big win like Cambria Heights did last week with Northern, and then the next week, I mean, as your coach, would he have been worried? Would Camberg have been worried?
I only ever played in 1 playoff game in Mo Valley in my 4 years there, and that was my sophomore year. We lost in the first round of Junior Valley, but yeah, I mean, what a big win! I remember, speaking of the Tyrone Bellwood rivalry, Nick Loveridge used to tell me all the time that first game that kind of propels you into the rest of the season, and that's kind of what it did for Purchase Line this year. So, having said all that, Cambria Heights is playing pretty good ball over the last 6, 7, 8 weeks. They started out 2-2, and they've been pretty good ever since.
And we talked about it last week. We said, can Cambria Heights beat Northern Cambria? And we talked about all the opportunities they missed inside the 20-yard line. Well, this time they turned all those around, and they got the turnovers when they needed them, and they cashed in the drives when they needed to. And that's what they'll have to do in this game. The Cambria Heights looking for their first ever district championship. That's a lot of pressure, I would think, too.
And you and I talked the weekends. I told you about Cambria Heights had to play Northern Cambria 3 times in 1 year. I mean, that had got to have been so hard for Northern Cambria's coach to have to, okay, we beat them twice. we can beat them again, but he didn't. You thought that was kind of a weird thing that they had to play 3 times.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on teams where we played a team twice within 1 year, and especially once the playoffs started, there's always a good chance you could match up with an opponent. But 3 times, boy, that, and then they lost the first 2.
They lost first 2.
So shouldn't the other team, at least because they've won 2 out of 3, they
I picked Northern Cambria
in the playoffs.
Speaking of, for a good transition to our next game, teams that have played before already this year. Class 3A first round playoff game. It's going to be at Du Bois Area High School. Incidentally, the Cambria Heights game is Friday night at Mansion Park at 7. This next game, Central versus Clearfield, the District 9 champ, the District 6 champ. What are you expecting from this game? Because Clearfield gave them a tussle.
And they've this series always when Central plays Clearfield, it seems to always go down to the wire. It's always been a pretty close game. I think Central's won 2 of the last 3 matchups, but in that last game, it went right down to the wire. Central kind of jumped out to a nice lead, but then Clearfield almost came back on them. And Clearfield has shown that ability throughout the year. Unfortunately, Coach Franco knows about their ability to rally. What makes this team? What makes Clearfield a dangerous team that, like, even if you get out ahead of them, they can still come back on you?
Well, they have excellent skill people, and their quarterback is a senior, and he's a 2 or 3 year starter, 2-year starter, and he just is. He's played outstanding football this year. They have a group of skilled kids that they're never out of it until the final gun because their linemen are not overpowering like they were in the past. Last year they had a tremendous offensive line and they really played well. But this year they replaced most of those linemen and the skilled kids kind of carried them through. And anytime you have skilled kids, you're always in the game.
You were worried about Central again. We were talking because they had that bye, which you hated. You said you would hate to have a bye, and I guess that showed up in that you went to the game with Penn Cambria. Mm-hmm. That kind of showed up, didn't it?
I think it did. I know. I've always been against that bye. I don't think it benefits anyone, and it's just like in baseball. They give the 2 best teams a week off, and baseball,
I don't want to hear about that. I don't want to hear about that.
Then saw the Rangers won.
It's not a baseball show.
All right, break it up.
But the same thing in football. You just can't have that week off. It's not like college where they're used to that, and that's part of the format. But in high school, that makes it difficult. And Central didn't look quite as strong as they've had, over the year.
And now Clearfield's having to deal with that this week. They were off last week.
Miles, the coach.
Sure, yeah.
Does it surprise you first year? Boom, they weren't like 5-5 or 6-4. I mean, they had a nice year.
Yeah, and Miles. I mean, I think we talked about this when they played Central in the regular season a few weeks ago. But yeah, Miles, he comes from Pitt, and of course he learned under Tim Janoko there. From what I understand, a lot of the same philosophies as Tim, but he also carried some stuff from Pitt, from his Pitt days. But it doesn't surprise me that Miles has done well in his first year, almost right away. And if I remember right, Central and Clearfield, the first time, they were in the red zone. Clearfield was in the red zone at the end of the game.
The last 2 plays were at the 10-yard line, 16 seconds. You and I were listening on the radio.
Yeah, we were.
And they tried just 2 passes, and I thought, oh my God, Clearfield's going to come back. And they did. They kept coming back.
Yeah. So, I mean, hey, to get themselves in that same situation again, flip a coin, kind of like last time.
How refreshing is it to you, Coach, to see the 2 receivers for Central, Jack Dunn and Jacob Benton? Here's 2 guys that they're seniors this year and barely played last year. And, because they had Eli Lingenfelder and some really good players, they waited their turn and now they're getting their chance to succeed. I probably think it's rare that you have kids that are just patient, wait back, and then are able to have their big moments.
Well, Mike, they remind me of our heyday back in the mid-'90s up through the 2000s. We would lose a great senior class. But when your program is really flowing and really going strong like Central's is, those kids that are waiting, first of all, they're practicing against really super competition to get themselves better. But they just have a belief in them that I can't wait to be my turn. I mean, I always remember our 97 team, '96 group had had 3 years of just outstanding football, and most people thought, well, they're going to probably go 5-5 next year if they have a good year. And our guys, I mean, we had 9 new starters on both sides of the ball, and we had a receiver playing quarterback, and all he did was set every record. But when you believe that you're the best, and you believe that program is the best, and that's where they're at right now, that can carry you for years, and they're showing it.
Speaking of showing it, another good transition. Northern Bedford, Class 1A first round game at Claysburg Kimmel, got a playoff game. See what happens when you put in a nice new field? You get to host the state playoff game. But a daunting task here. District 3 champs, Stilton High Spire. Mike and I were joking around about who we were going to pick, in our picks in the mirror this week. And I love Gary Black, love Northern Bedford. But gosh, Steel High, that just seems like another beast. What do they have here? In case we hear a phone call from their coach, Mike's waiting to interview him still.
Yeah, they have a great, they have a great program there. They've won 2 of the last 3 1A championships with BG sandwich in between them there. And they have a quarterback, Alex Irby, who's going to Navy, and his brother is also going to an FBS college, and they have a couple other kids that are going to colleges across the country. And this is a 1A school, which you don't see that a lot of times. And they're going to, like when I talked to Coach Gary Black, he was just like, we just have to accept it. Even though we have a good defense, we're going to give up some points. We just have to keep up with them. The interesting thing about this is, though, it's just a one game. This is football. And one of the things I've heard Coach Franco talk about in years past is, it's tough when you're in that Whitfield schedule and you have to play like a Whitfield team every week. But if you get one game against them, and you have a week to prepare, you can win that game. And you guys have done that at Tyrone. Can you talk a little bit about that? About like, hey, this is a really tough game, but if it's just 1 week, 1 day, we can do that.
Like
Absolutely. We always said that going into the Western Final over the years, that if we were to play Aliquippa 10 times, they'd probably beat us 9 times. But we don't have to play them 10 times. We don't have to play them 5 times. We have to play them 1 time. And you can beat anybody 1 time. And we were fortunate. We played the Whitfield teams 4 or 5 times in my career, and we only lost once to them. That was the first time we played them. And then after that, and then I always remember them walking off the field after Stevie's senior year, and
Clipper game.
Yeah, and I'm listening to their kids are going, how did we lose to these guys? There's no way they're better than us. And I wanted to say, well, we're not, but today we were, and that's all we had to do is be better than you today. So in football, you always have that shot. Basketball, you have that shot. And boy, basketball upsets over the years, I think, really highlight that.
How do you defend against speed, though? Can you defend against that?
Yeah, you can defend against anything. I mean, you don't use a lot of press man coverage, but there are a lot of zones that you can get into, and I'm sure that's what they're doing. And there are ways of doing it. You get pressure on a quarterback, that speed doesn't really come into play if you're in a deep zone. So I'm sure Gary will have a great plan ready, and they'll give them everything they need. But those Northern Bedford kids are really tough too. And I think the toughness of the teams in our region, when we play inter-district games, that comes out. And I think that's really helped our teams, have some success in the playoffs over the years.
Do you think Gary has to worry about his kids not being, not that I don't think they'd be afraid, but Steel High, because it's a Harrisburg area school, it's a District 3, kids know who they're playing nowadays.
Yeah, just the fact that the program that Stilton High Spire has over there. Intimidated? No, I don't think they should be. But like John was talking about just now, I was kind of thinking of the Little Giants speech when the Little Giants are down 21-0 to the Cowboys. in that
A movie. He's
And-
talking about a movie.
know,
I was
I
worried.
know.
You were talking about the New
I
York
saw it.
Giants. Okay.
And Rick Moranis always says, "Hey, one time you can do it." So I mean, hey, I think that's the attitude that Northern Bedford needs this week.
Hey, if I could add one thing there,
Yeah.
just go back to my favorite all-time hockey team, the
Oh.
1980 U.S.
US.
Olympic
Oh,
team.
sure,
It's
yeah.
not allowed to be
I mean,
your
and
favorite.
that's what they said. If we played the Soviets 10 times, they'd probably beat us 9, but we only have to beat them
But
once.
yeah, they got them to
and,
game them
and that
back.
may have been the biggest upset of all time.
Mhm.
And I think we've all used that game whenever we were faced with big odds like that because we know that it can be done.
And the other thing about Northern Bedford is it's a very veteran team. These kids, a lot of them have been through being in 4 district championship games. They were part of the team that beat Reynolds in the state playoffs, played Red Bank Valley tough. This is a team that if they get punched in the mouth, they're not just going to quit. They're resilient, and that's going to be what the recipe is to try to have an upset here.
Our last game we're going to talk about, and Coach knows about one of these teams well. It's the District 6 2A Championship Saturday at Mansion Park, 7 o'clock. Richland, the number 2 seed, versus Bald Eagle area, the number 1 seed. I know you've gotten to talk to Coach Nagel quite a bit over the weeks here to the season. What are you expecting from this game?
Yeah, I've seen Bald Eagle area twice, 3 times this year. I saw them both games against BG, and I saw them play Penn Cambria. And when they beat Penn Cambria 46-0, I was blown away because I did not expect that out of them. And I have been really impressed with how Bald Eagle has improved from the beginning of the season until the way they're playing right now. And on the other hand, you have Richland, who has had to deal with a lot of injuries. They've had like 4 different quarterbacks this year. They've had a lot of injuries. And Evan McCracken, he's played, but he's got a foot injury, and he's a very valuable player for Richland. I have no idea what will happen in this game. This is a game that's really hard for me to pick. I'm interested to hear Coach Franco's thoughts on Bald Eagle since you guys have seen.
Who are you picking? So we haven't made our picks yet.
Oh, I'm going Bald Eagle on that. Now, that's easy for me to say because I haven't seen Richland outside of a couple scouting films. But, I mean, they're always a great team. They've had their program going. But I think this is the team Bald Eagle had been waiting for. They had been pointing toward this year, and everything worked out well for them. We played them, actually, it was our second game within 4 days, and I don't think we physically were ready, but we actually didn't play a bad game out after the first quarter. We were down 21-0. We come back with 3 touchdowns of our own in the second period, and we were going in for a touchdown on our first possession that would have put us ahead, which I think would have given us some momentum advantage, and then we threw an interception. And but to their credit, I mean, they hung in there, and it was a pretty close game, and then they scored twice at the end of the game to put it away. But Bald Eagle has it going. There isn't one area of their team. They have good running backs, they have good receivers, a good quarterback, and their defense is probably the best part of their overall program. People don't realize how tough their defense is, and they've got some really good athletes that they feature. They've got the whole ball of wax rolling here.
How about coaching wise, Hootie? Because Bailey's been there forever. He's coached in a lot of these games. Nagel's
Nagel and his staff, though, to think about it,
Okay.
back in the 2016, 17, 18, there they went
They made
to
a
the
state
Western Finals.
semifinal.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And-
So they've been there.
And just talk about the progress that Bald Eagle area has made as a program. I remember whenever I was in high school at Tyrone, and I would go to Bald Eagle area games against Tyrone, and it was ugly every time. For them to go as a program from what they were then in the late 90s, early 2000s to what they are now, I mean, that's just a really tough turnaround to do, but they have done it at Bald Eagle.
Well, you know what, though, Mike? If you go before that, when Gowan Stoker was there, they were a power. They have always
80s.
had great athletes. And then when Stoker left, and there were some problems there, regardless, when he left, they went through a series of coaches, and we would as a coaching staff at Tyrone, we would sit there and say, oh God, how we beat them this badly. They're really good. But they were every other year had a different coaching staff, and so they never were able to play to their potential. But we all knew that they had the talent, they had the people. And then when Jesse took over, they finally said, hey, let's establish a program here. They've got a good coaching staff. They've kept them intact. And that's what happens when you have some good, solid, consistent coaching of really good athletes, and they're showing it right now.
Well, I have a question I want to ask you, Ben, because I always ask you since you played here.
Yeah.
Most recently as a 34-year-old guy can be recent.
Yeah, exactly.
But the fact is that I know Mike has talked to me about saying about these quarterbacks who are Richland are really young. I mean, the fact is that they've got these ninth graders playing quarterback in a big game. So obviously, there's no, hey, I played in eighth grade. As much as I love junior high, you can't go, hey, remember how you did in eighth grade against this school and everything?
Yeah.
Bald Eagle Area's got a veteran quarterback. Richland does not. Doesn't that give Bald Eagle Area? I'm looking for an edge.
That's what. Richland has how many district titles in a row, Mike?
Well, they won 4 in a row until BG won last year.
Okay, that's right. Sorry about that. But you know what? And Richland's still a really solid program. And having said that, I mean, I saw Bald Eagle once this year too against Bellwood. I like the point that John made. It's like, we talk about their offense a lot with, all the quarterback is good. The Nail kid's good. All the wideouts they have as weapons. The Dubs kid at running back is not bad. But having said all that, their defense is also really good too. That game I covered against Bellwood, I don't even think they had 200 total yards. Because, I mean, they returned 2 fumbles for a touchdown, I think, and then they had, 2 more drives that started, inside the 30-yard line. So they can beat you a ton of different ways.
Mm-hmm. And now we're going to look at the fun part of our show that we know everybody looks forward to. So we're going to start with Mike's Stat of the Week, then we'll go over Andy's line. Michael, what do you have for us for Stat of the Week?
Well, Stat of the Week this week is that the game we were talking about, which would be, we said it would be such a huge upset and everything with Northern Bedford beating Stilton High Spire. According to Penn Live state rankings, it wouldn't be that big of a upset because while Stilton High Spire is ranked number 1, Northern Bedford's ranked number 3. So they are 2 of the top 3 teams, and Gary Black said he's going to treat this like it's the state championship. And, if the bracket was a different way, it very well could have been.
Okay, who was 2? Do you remember off the top of your head? I know for the Harrisburg paper to recognize Northern Bedford, I think that's pretty cool. Andy, who did you end up picking? I know Sunday night you were trying to figure out what offensive line you were going to highlight for us this week.
Short steps. Short steps are better than long steps.
Yeah. So at this point of the season, I kind of run out of teams that I can feature on my line of the week. And sometimes at this point of the season, we're going to have somebody that I've already done before. I already did Northern Bedford's offense line, speaking of Northern Bedford. So this week I'm going to do Northern Bedford's defensive line.
Which you're allowed to do.
You're allowed to do that. Hey.
There are no rules on our show.
Northern Bedford's really good this year. Maybe they should have it twice. So, 100. I think they had 143 yards total against Windber had 143 total yards against their defense last week. So, but the thing that's impressive is I don't care how many guys Windberger had out, they held them to 7 points, and that's outstanding in a district championship game. So, the starters on the defensive line are Jake Bowser, Brock Beach, Mason Broombaugh, Logan Pepple, and guys that play a lot are Brian Amick, Joey O'Brien, Kean Geyer. So, good luck against Stilton High Spire.
And I don't think any of those names were any part of our cool name segment, which I know is probably John's favorite segment now of our show. And actually, Rocky Romani once made our cool name show because that's just a cool name. That is, you can't. If his name was Bill Romani, it would have never made it. Rocky Romani makes a name. But here's our cool names. And Mike actually gave me the one. I'm going to give the one.
What if he was Raymond Romani?
No, Rocky Romani. It's Romani, right? Romani.
I wanna know what's the name of the game.
Anyways, our cool names. I know, and I went to school with Atlanta Romani. Anyways, Bald Eagle area got a kid on there named Eli Fry. I just like the alliteration. Eli Fry. He's a sophomore two-way lineman from Bald Eagle area. But the name that is actually replaced from a couple years ago, BG had a kid named Sante Bumbachi.
I know, you told me.
Sante Bumbachi. I love the kid. I met his dad and everything. He'll be number 2 now because there's a kid playing football with Sharon. He's a senior. Wide receiver, strong safety. His name is Mr. Ham. His first name is Mr. His last name is Ham. He is Mr. Ham. And I can't wait till someday when he gets married. I would love to be there. Ladies and gentlemen, can I introduce you for the first time, Mr. and Mrs. Mr. Ham.
And Mr. Ham is playing in the District 10 championship.
Yep, Sharon, good football.
weekend.
And we had all kinds of fun with that name.
It was great.
We said people by the end of the night were baking us to stop with the ham puns.
I'll take a Charlie or a George any day of the week.
Yeah, see, unless it's got a cool last name to go.
Basic.
But it's got to be a cool name. But anyways, that's going to do it. We don't know if we're going to be back next week. Do we, Michael?
Well, I mean, I would hope that we are. We have some teams still playing here, and Central obviously has beaten Clearfield already. Cambria Heights has a good shot against Purchase Line, and like we said, Northern Bedford's the number 3 team in the state for a reason. So who knows if we'll be back, but I hope we are.
And if we would only have Cambria Heights, could we do the show live? Daniel, our producer, we could go to Hubcaps up in Patton.
Oh, there
We could do it live from there. Maybe they could give us some pizza. And we could have Hubcaps in the background. The high school's right across the street, but who knows?
If not, we can always come into your Pat's house.
There we go. Or we could go to the Best Way Pizza in Loysburg for Northern Bedford. But that's going to do it for this week. Thanks, John Franco, for coming in.
John.
For Andy Stein, for Mike Boyden, for Daniel Eisenberg behind the camera, I'm Scott Franco. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you, hopefully, maybe next week.